The sky was burning. As massive alien warships descended through the atmosphere, the last remnants of Earth's defenses crumbled. Plasma lances melted through skyscrapers. Firestorms raged across entire continents. Billions perished in the first few days. The invaders, a coalition of galactic empires known as the Zalari Dominion, had judged humanity unfit for the stars. Their verdict was extermination. General Elias Carter watched from orbit. The final evacuation fleet, less than 10,000 ships, was retreating under heavy fire. Earth's last hope for survival rested with them. The plan had always been to fight, but humanity was never given the chance. First contact had been a massacre. The Dominion saw humanity's rapid technological growth as a threat. Before diplomatic channels could even open, the attack had begun. "Sir, we have to go," Captain Adrian Voss urged, gripping his shoulder. The battleship Indomitable shook under another barrage. Hull breaches were multiplying, and their defenses were failing. Carter clenched his fists. Every fiber of his being screamed to stay, to fight, to avenge the billions lost below. But survival meant retreat. Revenge could come later. Set course for the Exodus rally point. Maximum speed, he ordered. As the last of humanity's fleet left the system, Earth, a cradle of life for over 200,000 years, was reduced to an uninhabitable wasteland. But humanity was not extinct. Not yet. The ragged remains of humanity drifted through the endless void, a people without a home, their past reduced to glowing embers in the wake of Earth's destruction. The Exodus fleet, what remained of the Terran Confederation's military and civilian ships, was all that stood between total extinction and the fragile hope of survival. General Elias Carter stood on the command deck of the Indomitable, staring at the fleet's holographic display. It was a grim sight. Of the 10,000 ships that had fled Earth, only 7,321 had made it to the designated rally point, a desolate system with a dying star, far outside known Dominion space. "Casualty reports?" Carter asked, his voice sharp but restrained. Captain Adrian Voss, his second-in-command, exhaled. "We lost another 86 ships to mechanical failures. Most were civilian vessels with no fuel, no supplies. We've got starvation setting in across multiple carriers. Morale is," she hesitated, then finished, "collapsing." Carter's jaw tightened. He knew what she wasn't saying. People were breaking. Fear, despair, and fury coiled around the fleet like a noose. "Then we find a new home," he said. "We rebuild. We survive. No matter what it takes." The fracturing of the fleet. But it wasn't that simple. Among the survivors were politicians, ex-military leaders, and corporate executives, figures who had once shaped human civilization but now vied for control in the power vacuum left behind. In the dim-lit corridors of the Exodus Council, a storm brewed. "This isn't sustainable." Governor Leto Vargas of Titan slammed a fist against the table. "Our people are starving. We don't have the resources to wander aimlessly through space." "Then we take what we need," Admiral Kessler of the Martian fleet snapped. "The Dominion has thousands of supply outposts. We raid them, we seize their ships. And bring the full weight of their fleet upon us?" Chancellor Mira Zhao cut in, her face shadowed with exhaustion. "Humanity barely survived one assault. If they find us again, we won't be so lucky." "Then we make sure they never find us," came another voice, one that silenced the room. All eyes turned to Carter. "We don't have a home anymore," he continued. "But that doesn't mean we can't build one. The Dominion doesn't see us as a threat anymore. They believe we're scattered remnants, doomed to fade into history." He leaned forward. "We make them regret that mistake. We disappear. We rebuild in the shadows. And when the time comes, we rise stronger than before." For a long moment, no one spoke. Then, one by one, heads nodded. Humanity would not die in the void. They would become something new. The Exodus fleet drifted like ghosts through the void, their lights dimmed, their transmissions silent. Carter's orders were clear: humanity had to disappear if it wanted to survive. And so, they became shadows, moving in the forgotten corners of the galaxy. The search for a home. Their sensors scoured every system they passed, searching for a planet, anywhere that could sustain them. Most worlds were inhospitable. Some were barren wastelands, others too close to Dominion patrol routes. Weeks turned into months. Supplies dwindled further. Mutiny nearly broke out in the lower decks of several civilian ships. Then, at the edge of an uncharted star system, they found it. It was no paradise, far from it. A tidally locked planet, with only a narrow habitable strip between its frozen dark side and its scorched light side. The air was thin but breathable. Underground caverns stretched for miles, rich in minerals and geothermal energy. A place to hide. A place to rebuild. They called it Erebus. Rebuilding in the shadows. The first weeks on Erebus were brutal. The planet was an unforgiving world, and the people who landed on it were still grieving, still afraid. But under Carter's leadership, something remarkable happened. They didn't just survive. They adapted. Engineers repurposed what they could from their wrecked ships, constructing underground shelters powered by geothermal vents. Scientists developed atmospheric processors to thicken the air, making it more hospitable over time. Soldiers trained tirelessly, forming the first generation of a new military force, one that would strike fear into the Dominion when the time came. This wasn't just survival. This was preparation. Whispers in the void. But the galaxy was not blind. Even in the depths of uncharted space, rumors spread. Merchant traders passing through nearby systems spoke in hushed tones about strange, cloaked ships raiding abandoned outposts, taking only what was needed. Dominion scouts reported ghost signals, fleeting transmissions, glimpses of a fleet that should not exist. The Dominion dismissed these as anomalies. A mistake they would come to regret. For humanity had not been wiped out. It had merely gone silent. And in the silence, it was sharpening its claws. Erebus was no paradise, but in the crucible of hardship, humanity was reforged. What had been a scattered, starving fleet had become something new, something stronger. They were no longer the Terran Confederation. That had died with Earth. They were something different now. Something forged in exile. They called themselves the Ember Legion. The birth of the Ember Legion. Carter knew that survival alone was not enough. If humanity stayed hidden forever, the Dominion would grow complacent. They needed to be reminded that Earth's ashes still smoldered, that the fire of humanity had not been extinguished. So, in the dark tunnels of Erebus, the Ember Legion was born. The best engineers worked tirelessly, repurposing Dominion technology salvaged from raids. Civilians were trained as soldiers, spies, and infiltrators. The brightest minds reverse-engineered Dominion weapons, improving upon them. The fleet, once broken and desperate, became sleek, deadly, and silent, designed for surgical strikes, not open war. Humanity had learned its lesson. They could not match the Dominion in numbers. But they didn't have to. They would fight like predators. The first strike. 2 years after the fall of Earth, the Ember Legion struck. Their first target was Outpost Theta 19, a small but vital Dominion supply station. The Dominion believed it was untouchable, patrolled by automated drones and a skeleton crew. They never saw the Ember Legion coming. Black-clad strike teams infiltrated the outpost under the cover of a passing asteroid field. They moved like ghosts, cutting down the few alien guards before they could sound the alarm. In less than an hour, the station belonged to humanity. But they didn't hold it. They stripped it bare. Weapons, supplies, star charts, anything of value was taken. Then, they rigged the station's core to explode. When the Dominion finally arrived, all they found was debris. A message was left behind, burned into the wreckage. We are still here. The fire spreads. The attack sent shockwaves through the galaxy. The Dominion dismissed it at first, calling it the work of desperate scavengers. But then it happened again. And again. Supply depots vanished. Patrol ships disappeared. Communication relays went dark. The Ember Legion was striking, and they were impossible to catch. The Dominion had committed genocide against humanity, believing it would be the end. Instead, they had created something far worse than they could have imagined. They had created a nightmare that hunted in the dark. The Ember Legion's attacks had begun as whispers, shadows moving in the void, striking only where they could not be caught. But now, the whispers had grown into a storm. The Dominion, once so sure of humanity's extinction, was beginning to see the truth. Earth had burned, but humanity had not died. It had become something far worse than they had ever feared. The Dominion's retaliation. Enraged by the growing losses, the Zalari Dominion deployed an elite task force to crush the Ember Legion. They called it the Purge Fleet, a battle group of over 300 warships, each one powerful enough to devastate an entire planet. Their orders were simple. Find the remnants of humanity. Destroy them. Leave nothing behind, ****. But finding shadows in the void is not so simple. For every fleet the Dominion sent, the Ember Legion refused to engage in direct battle. They fought like ghosts, striking, vanishing, bleeding the Dominion dry one ship at a time. Supply chains collapsed. Admirals were assassinated. Entire colonies rebelled, emboldened by the Legion's defiance. And then, for the first time in galactic history, a Dominion dreadnought was destroyed by a force the Dominion had written off as extinct. The fall of the Va Careth. The Va Careth was a symbol of Dominion power, a massive battleship nearly 10 kilometers long, a fortress in space. It carried enough firepower to raise entire planets. The Dominion believed it was invincible. They were wrong. Using stolen access codes, Ember Legion operatives infiltrated the ship, moving unseen through its corridors. The crew never knew they were there, until it was too late. The strike teams disabled life support, hacked the ship's automated defenses, and took control of the reactor. Within an hour, the Va Careth was dead in the void, its weapons silent. Then the Ember Legion broadcasted a message across every known Dominion channel. For Earth. For humanity. For the fallen. Then, they detonated the reactor. The explosion was visible from orbit. The message was clear. Humanity was no longer running. Fear spreads among the stars. Panic rippled through the Dominion. The loss of the Va Careth was more than a military defeat, it was an embarrassment. The Ember Legion had done the impossible. And worse, the cracks were beginning to show. Other oppressed species, ones who had long suffered under the Dominion's rule, began to take notice. If humanity, a race supposedly exterminated, could rise and fight back, then why couldn't they? For the first time in centuries, the Dominion was no longer feared. It was questioned. And in the darkest halls of Dominion High Command, the unthinkable was spoken. What if humanity could not be stopped? The destruction of the Va Careth was a wound the Zalari Dominion could not ignore. The Ember Legion had done what was thought impossible, not only had they survived, but they had struck back. Hard. And now, the rest of the galaxy was paying attention. The spark of rebellion. Across Dominion-controlled space, whispers of resistance spread like wildfire. On the industrial world of Zareth Prime, once a vital manufacturing hub for the Dominion fleet, workers staged a mass uprising. Dominion enforcers, expecting an easy suppression, were instead met with hidden weapons, smuggled in by Ember Legion operatives. Within days, Zareth Prime fell, its factories turned against their former masters. On Kelvos 4, a species long enslaved by the Dominion, the reptilian Torvani, rose in defiance. Inspired by humanity's resurgence, they overpowered their captors and seized the planet's defense grid. When the Dominion fleet arrived to reassert control, they were met with planetary shields reactivated against them. Even among the Dominion's own ranks, fear festered. Some high-ranking officials defected, bringing valuable intelligence with them. Others, too afraid to act, simply hesitated when orders to retaliate came down. The Ember Legion's war was no longer just humanity's. It was becoming a revolution. The Dominion's desperation. The Zalari Dominion, once the galaxy's unquestioned ruler, found itself bleeding from 1,000 cuts. And in desperation, it made its first mistake. They launched Operation Final Silence, a last-ditch attempt to crush the Ember Legion and erase humanity once and for all. Through extensive intelligence efforts, Dominion spies uncovered a possible location of humanity's hidden homeworld, Erebus. A fleet was mobilized. This was no mere hunting force, this was an armada, 3,000 warships. Weapons primed. A genocide prepared. They would wipe Erebus from existence. The Legion's greatest battle. General Elias Carter stood on the command deck of the Indomitable, staring at the incoming Dominion fleet. They were outnumbered 50-1. But humanity had never cared about the odds. They had planned for this. Every ship in the Ember Legion was modified for war, not the brute force kind that the Dominion favored, but a war of tactics, of precision. They had no intention of fighting fair. As the Dominion Armada entered the Erebus system, they encountered minefields of cloaked explosives. Entire squadrons were wiped out before they realized what had happened. Then came the hacked Dominion warships, vessels the Ember Legion had captured and repurposed, turned against their former masters. And then, from the depths of Erebus itself, launched Project Revenant, humanity's greatest weapon, a stealth battleship with technology so advanced that even the Dominion sensors couldn't detect it. The first shot from the Revenant annihilated the Dominion flagship in a single, devastating blast. Panic spread through the Dominion ranks. They had expected a slaughter. Instead, they were the ones being torn apart. The tide turns. The battle raged for hours, but as Dominion ships fell one by one, a realization struck their commanders. They weren't winning. They couldn't win. And then, a moment no one had thought possible occurred. For the first time in its history, the Zalari Dominion ordered a retreat. They abandoned the attack. They left Erebus intact. Humanity had not just survived. They had won. The retreat of the Dominion Armada from Erebus was a blow to their pride that no amount of reinforcements could erase. In the span of a single battle, humanity had gone from scattered remnants to the greatest threat the Dominion had ever faced. And for the first time in millennia, the mighty Zalari Dominion trembled. The collapse begins. The retreat was not without consequence. The Dominion leadership was divided, their unified front crumbling under the weight of their failures. The Council of Zalari, the ruling body that had held power for centuries, began to fracture. On distant worlds, governors and military commanders, once loyal to the Dominion, started questioning their allegiance. Some, emboldened by humanity's triumph, defected. Others secretly began to aid the Ember Legion, funneling resources and intelligence to the revolution. The galaxy had shifted. And the Dominion no longer held the power it once did. A galaxy in flames. The Ember Legion did not rest on their victory. They had taken the first step, but they knew the war was far from over. There were still hundreds of Dominion strongholds across the galaxy, each one a potential battlefield. Carter, now hailed as a symbol of humanity's unyielding will, knew that the real fight was just beginning. But this time, humanity had the upper hand. The Legion struck again, and again. Planet after planet, Dominion outposts fell to coordinated raids, sabotage, and guerrilla tactics. The Ember Legion didn't just want to defeat the Dominion, they wanted to break its spirit. Word spread fast. The people of the galaxy, long oppressed by the Dominion, began to rise. The Zalari Empire, once an unstoppable force, began to fragment as systems declared independence. In the central capital of Viadora, the heart of Dominion power, rebellion broke out in the streets. The Emperor, once the untouchable ruler of all known space, was overthrown. For the first time, his throne sat empty, a symbol of the Empire's collapse. The unyielding will of humanity. In the shadow of this revolution, General Elias Carter stood before a new council, one made up not just of humans, but of former enemies who now saw the promise of a future free from the Dominion's grip. "We are not just rebuilding," Carter said, his voice carrying through the chambers of their new capital. "We are ensuring that no one ever suffers the way we did. No one ever faces extinction again. Humanity has fought, bled, and risen from the ashes. We've shown the galaxy that we will never yield." He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. "And we will make sure that the Zalari Dominion is only a memory. A warning." Humanity had become the force that reshaped the galaxy, not through brute force alone, but through ingenuity, unity, and the relentless will to survive. Their journey had started with a catastrophic defeat, the fall of Earth, but it had become a story of galactic conquest. The fires of war had burned bright, but now, the galaxy looked to the future. And that future belonged to humanity. Epilogue, A New Dawn. Years passed. The ember of rebellion that had sparked in the dark void of Erebus had grown into a blazing star. The Dominion, fractured and broken, could no longer stand in the way of the new galaxy emerging from the ashes. And at the heart of it all, humanity had forged its place, not as the last remnants of an ancient civilization, but as the architects of a new era. The Ember Legion, once thought to be a fading memory, became the foundation of an interstellar alliance, a beacon of hope for every species that had once suffered under the Dominion's rule. Humanity's journey had begun with survival, but it had ended in something much greater, the undeniable truth that, no matter the odds, no matter the enemy, humanity would never be extinguished. It would always rise.